16th of February 2022.
The push to shorten the work week from 5 days to 4.
Stress levels drop 15%.
From news.com.au.
I'm Andrew Bucklow, and I've got news for you. How would you like to work 1 day less a week without taking a pay cut? I mean, it sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? But it's not. More and more companies around the world are trialling it, and guess what? Pretty much all of them discover that it results in increased productivity and improved workers' well-being. Interesting, huh? In today's episode, we'll take a look at all the pros and cons, and we'll meet the founder of an Aussie company which has already made the switch to a 4-day work week.
The concept behind the 4-day week is that you get 100% pay as if you were a full-time staff member, as all our staff members are, and you work 80% of the time, so 4 normal length 8-hour work days, but with productivity expected to be 100%.
Dr. Jane Menzies is from the Deakin Business School, and she's spent a lot of time researching the pros and cons of a 4-day work week. Dr. Jane, let's start with the pros.
Yes, certainly. I do think it's about the ability to give people a day off to do the things that they want to do. So it might be that, you want to look after your child. It might be that you want to do some yoga or go to the gym. Or it's just, perhaps you can schedule your doctor appointments or, getting your tax done and things like that. And, often employees will have to take the day off. They might even do the wrong thing and take a sickie to, go do those types of things. So I definitely think it's about giving employees, a better work-life balance and just making them more happier and more satisfied at their work. So that's on the employee side. But I think on the employer side, they're actually finding that they're more productive. So when you're working in more concentrated times, so in 4 days, people tend to be more like, I've got to get it done. I'm not going to waste time going out to lunch or going to coffees with people. I'm just going to sit there, get my work done. And therefore, a lot of companies, so for instance, if you look up Microsoft in Japan, they implemented the 4-day working week. And I think they got some huge productivity benefits, something like 40% of increased productivity. And similarly, some of the firms in Australia that have been using it, they've also noted productivity gains. So all round, happy for employees and happy for employers as well.
There must be some downsides though, because I guess if it was the plus side, everyone would have done it already. So what are the opponents to 4-day work week saying?
Yeah, definitely. I think some of the opponents are the fact that sometimes employers have a very kind of conservative mentality, or they don't want to implement it yet, or they're unsure about the benefits of it. But also I think some of the challenges are, so for some firms, even though you might be only working 4 days, you would be working longer hours. So for some companies, it might be that you're still working the 40-hour week, but it's condensed into 4 days. That would mean that you're working 10 hours on those 4 days rather than 5 days at 8 hours. So I guess that can be tiring or stressful for employees. Also, the other challenge is that I guess there's a question about which day do you give off to employees? Do you let the employee just choose any day that they want off per week, or do you nominate that a particular day off every week is the day off? So for instance, it could be Wednesday, so that would be really helpful for people. That would be hump day. Or you could say maybe Friday or Monday, so that gives everyone a long weekend. But I think also the other issue is what happens when the organisation has client deliverables on those days. So for instance, you've got a client calling up and they want they need to be serviced on that day. If you've got all of your employees off on that day, then how do you deal with that challenge of that? The other issue would be meetings as well. So, obviously, do you nominate that Wednesday is everyone's day off, so therefore you won't schedule meetings on that day, but just say people had a choice about which day they had off, then it becomes difficult to have meetings because people might go, oh, no, I've got my day off. So there's definitely some challenges implementing it, but I definitely think that there's some benefits and alternatives to, what we are currently working.
Surely if you got the Friday off, you would be getting shit-faced most weekends, wouldn't you? Oh, I think that sounds amazing. How likely do you think it is that more companies in Australia will start adopting a 4-day work week?
Yeah, look, I think that, there's been quite a lot of push for it. And I think as we see that there are more companies adopting it and we see that there's success in doing it, then I think there will be. But I think it just requires, huge cultural change from an organisational perspective. And it's kind of tied in with all of the other things that we're currently going through at the moment, which we refer to as the future of work, which also includes things like, employers are now more comfortable allowing their employees to work from home. And also, I guess, the impact of technology and how technology allows us to, work anywhere in the world. So I definitely think that it will be something that will be adopted, but I think that we need to have more research and we also need to have more companies doing it so that we can see what the benefits are from it.
Dr. Amantha Imber is the founder of a behavioural science consultancy company called Inventium, and in 2020 the company made a big change. They switched to a 4-day work week. Amantha, what prompted that change?
Well, it was around the time that COVID had hit back in March 2020, and we had to retrench some staff, and we were thinking internally about how do we, really elevate the employee experience given things are really tough at the moment. And our CEO, Mish, suggested, why don't we try the 4-day week? And it had been something that I'd thought about before because I'd interviewed Andrew Barnes, who's the co-founder of the movement, on my podcast, How I Work, but I'd sort of put it in the back of my mind and hadn't come back to it. And we thought, well, this could be something interesting to give a go. So that's what prompted it.
So how does it work? Did anyone have to take a pay cut or did they have to work longer hours on their 4 days?
No, so it's really simple. The concept behind the 4-day week is that you get 100% pay as if you were a full-time staff member, as all our staff members are, and you work 80% of the time, so 4 normal length 8-hour work days, but with productivity expected to be 100%. So what you would be expected to achieve as a full-time employee. So it really is doing the same amount of work, but being more productive in those 4 days that you are working.
And did all staff members decide to take the same day off, or is it staggered around the company?
Well, we actually spoke about that as a team, and before we implemented it, we conducted a pre-mortem, which is where you future project and go, okay, let's imagine we're 1 year into the future after implementing this new policy. And let's just say it went really, really badly. What went wrong? And so that enabled us to, I guess, counteract things that might have been problematic. And we were worried that if, as a small team, there's about 10 of us at Inventium, if we were all left to our own devices to decide what days off we take, it could make collaboration really hard. So we decided that we'd all take the same day off, which was Friday, and that's proved to be a really good decision 18 months on, in that collaboration certainly didn't decrease from implementing the 4-day week.
And have you found it hard to get 5 days worth of work done in just 4 days?
I would say no. So one of the things that we do at Inventium is that we actually train other businesses in how to work more productively and do deeper focused work in the age of digital distraction, which can be very challenging for a lot of people. And we practice what we preach, and we really doubled down on a lot of those strategies. And we found after our initial 6-month trial of the 4-day week, we actually increased productivity by 26%. So we do work more productively, I think, than the average team.
So increased productivity is definitely an upside of this. What are the other benefits of a 4-day work week that you've encountered?
Look, so many. Employee engagement within Inventium was already very high. We were in the top 10% for management consulting, which is our industry. At the end of our 6-month trial, we were up at the top 1% for our industry in terms of engagement scores. We also found that stress levels reduced, which was pretty amazing because our trial was during one of the awful lockdowns that Melbourne had in the back half of 2020, and a lot of our team are Melbourne based. And we hit our financial targets 2 months early. So financially, the business continued to perform really strong despite the fact that we're only working 4 days rather than 5 days a week. So they're just some of the outcomes, but there were a lot of positive benefits, which is why we made it a permanent thing after the 6-month trial.
And can I ask, what do you do with your days off? What do you do on Fridays now?
Oh my goodness! It varies from team member to team member. Like our CEO Mish took up golf and has become quite the golf champion in Port Macquarie, where she lives. We had another team member take up bar teaching, so she became like a bar instructor, which is kind of like a cross between Pilates and ballet. I personally have done various different things with it, but one of the reasons why it came in very handy is that I've got a book coming out with Penguin in July, and trying to find time to write 70,000 words when you have a day job is very challenging. So the Fridays came in very useful for that.
And so I imagine you would recommend a 4-day work week to other companies around Australia?
Oh, just like wholeheartedly. I know it can seem like a very scary prospect, but I would say treat it as an experiment, run a pilot program, and have hypotheses in terms of what you're hoping will change, and measure those pre and post experiment. And I think by doing that, it gives business leaders the confidence to go, yeah, even though this might sound like a crazy idea, here's the data to prove that it actually works.
In 2018, a company in New Zealand called Perpetual Guardian decided to trial a 4-day work week. The boss, Andrew Barnes, was blown away by the results. Here he is in a TEDx talk.
Productivity actually stayed the same overall. Well, not marginally. But of course, that meant our staff were being 20% more productive on the days that they were working. But it was the other scores that absolutely blew us away. Engagement scores went up between 30 and 40%, to the highest level the researchers had ever seen in New Zealand. Stress levels dropped 15%. But the one that really got us was people said we're better able to handle our workload working 4 days, not 5.
Word spread about the trial's success, and Andrew and his wife Charlotte Lockhart were constantly asked about how to implement a 4-day work week.
What we found, because back in pre-pandemic days, we used to travel quite a lot. And what we found is that wherever we went, there were always people that wanted to talk to us about what we'd achieved. And as we had more and more conversations, we realised that there was a real hunger for some sort of structure to hang that off.
Andrew and Charlotte decided to set up a foundation called 4-Day Week Global to share the information they'd gathered and help other companies make the switch.
So 4-Day Week Global initially was just us, talking around the world, sharing the love, so to speak, and agitating with government and supporting academics. But what it has morphed into is actually we now run programs around the world that support businesses going onto the 4-day week or their version of a reduced hour week. It might be something else. And so we run pilot programs around the world now.
And so what have these pilot programs proved so far? Is a 4-day work week successful for most companies?
Yeah, the 4-day work week works in every company. And I know that sounds like a gross generalisation, but it works in every company where, A, there is a good cultural fit. You cannot, putting in a reduced hour work week in a company where you have bad culture isn't going to work, just as doing anything else. Is that fixing your company culture has got to be the first thing that you do. And then the other thing that you need is a leader who is agile and prepared to accept change and prepared to let their people determine how that change goes. I mean, the Great Resignation, or what's now being called the Great Reshuffle, actually tells us that people are looking for a workplace that gives them what they are looking for post-pandemic. And so and now what's happening, of course, is employees are choosing it. So what we find in our trials, and we've currently got trials running in Ireland and the US, and we're just recruiting for our trial in the UK. And what we're finding in those companies is that they recognise that they're going to need to do something different. And so those business leaders are going, right, I am going to make this change. Every single company that surveys its people, and companies out there, they all should be surveying their people. What is the workplace that you want moving forward? 4-day week tops it 99% of the time.
And are any of these trials coming up in Australia? Because it sounds pretty good to me.
Yes, so today we are launching our Australasian trial. And I know this sounds like a big pitch for it, but the reality is you asked to speak to me before you even knew that. Your timing just happens to be perfect. So yes, so we are launching our Australasian Pacific trial today, and so people can jump onto our website and find the Australasian trial information, sign up for our information events, and see if it's right for them.
If you're interested, you can check out the trial details at www.4dayweek.com/ANZ pilot. Listen, I'm sure some of you are thinking, oh my God, I would love a 4-day work week, but I'm a bit worried about bringing it up with my boss in case they flip out. Well, here's my suggestion, okay? How about you just send them the link to this podcast? You can say you sent it by accident if you like, and maybe, just maybe, that'll help plant the seed for a 4-day work week. And it'll also help me boost my ratings. So, win-win really. That's all we've got time for today. Thanks for listening to I've Got News for You. I'll catch you again next time.